Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. The farmhouse should have felt like mercy. Caleb stood at the end of the gravel drive with his hands shoved in his jacket pockets, staring at the porch railings, the clean lines of the windows, the untouched paint, too perfect for a place that had been empty for months. Beside him, Mara hugged her arms around herself, not from cold, but from the strange quiet that lived out here, the kind of quiet that made you feel like you were interrupting something. Bankruptcy had made them small. It had taught them how quickly a life could collapse into a cardboard box and a final notice. When Caleb's grandfather's attorney called about the will, Caleb had laughed. One sharp, unbelieving sound, before the relief hit so hard it made him dizzy. A house, land, a second chance. The front door opened with no resistance, as if it had been expecting them. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon oil and old wood. No dust, no mildew, no rot. Mara's eyes flicked from room to room, searching for the soft chaos of abandonment. Cobwebs, dead flies, the evidence of time. There was nothing. The house held itself the way a stranger held eye contact too long. In the kitchen, Caleb stopped. At first, Mara thought he'd seen a mouse. Then she followed his gaze to the center of the floor, where an ornate brass grate lay set into the boards like jewelry embedded in bone. The metal was warm to the touch and engraved with looping designs that didn't match anything else in the house. "What is that?" she whispered. Caleb crouched and traced the edge. A faint draft rose through it, cool and damp, carrying the mineral scent of cellar stone. Later, after they'd dragged boxes inside and the sun had bled orange behind the tree line, Caleb found the envelope tucked into the back of a kitchen drawer. No stamp, no date, just his name written in his grandfather's careful hand. His throat tightened as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "It's hungry. Don't feed it." Mara stared over his shoulder, waiting for the rest. There wasn't any. And then, from below the grate, a voice drifted up through the brass like a breath through teeth. Soft, familiar. "Mara," it said. "Honey, are you there?" Caleb's skin went tight. The voice was her mother's. Mara didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply stared at the grate as if the floor had learned her name. And then the voice very gently asked, Could you give me a little milk?" Night arrived without ceremony. One moment, the fields beyond the farmhouse glowed dull gold, cicadas buzzing in the hedgerows. The next, darkness pressed against the windows, as if the land itself had leaned closer to listen. Mara stood at the sink, rinsing a glass she hadn't used, her eyes drifting to the reflection in the pane. She froze. The yard was gone. Water stretched where the grass should have been, black and gently rippling beneath the moonlight. It lapped at the porch steps, swallowing the gravel drive without sound or urgency. A school of fish passed the front window in a loose, unhurried arc, silver sides flashing as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "Mara," Caleb said quietly behind her. She didn't turn. "Tell me you're seeing this." He was. Outside the kitchen window, the barn stood half submerged, its lower boards dark and slick. The water wasn't violent. It didn't crash or surge. It simply was. Patient, level, rising with intent. Caleb tried the front door. It opened a few inches before stopping with a soft, resisting pull, like fingers pressing back from the other side. Water pushed against the seam, bulging the wood inward. When he let go, the door sealed itself again with a dull, final thud. "Okay," he said too quickly. "Okay, it's a flood. Seasonal. Grandpa must have..." The words died when he saw the window above the sink. The water line slid past it, smooth as breath, carrying leaves, branches, and something heavier that bumped once against the glass before drifting away. They checked the cellar door together. Empty. No steps, no walls slick with moisture. No sign of water at all. The cellar was dry and cold and ordinary, the concrete floor bare except for the faint circular stain beneath the grate above, as if something had once waited there for a very long time. When morning came, the water was gone. The land lay quiet and soaked, steam lifting from the fields as sunlight crept through the trees. Caleb stepped onto the porch, heart hammering, and stared at the mud pressed flat against the house's foundation. Tracks ran through it. Not paws. Not hooves. Wide, dragging impressions that began beneath the kitchen window and ended at the cellar steps, each one filled with dark, stagnant water. Mara stood beside him, her voice barely more than breath. It walked inside. Caleb's gaze drifted to the center of the kitchen floor. The brass grate gleamed dully in the morning light. Dry. And waiting. It started with milk. Mara poured it slowly, her hands steady in a way that surprised her. She told herself she was proving a point, that she could do this without trembling, without fear turning her clumsy. When she tipped the glass through the brass grate, the sound it made was wrong. Not a splash, not a spill. Just absence. The milk was gone before it reached the bottom. Nothing came up through the grate afterward. No voice. No sound. Just the faint metallic smell of the brass warming beneath her palm. That night, the water stopped halfway up the porch steps. Caleb noticed first. He stood at the front window long after dark, watching the moon fracture across the surface of the flood. It never reached the door. Never pressed against the frame. Maybe it worked, he said cautiously, like the words might hear him. They fed it again the next evening, bread this time. A heel torn into soft pieces dropped one by one. The voice returned, warm and pleased, thanking them with his grandfather's cadence, then Mara's sister's laugh. Then Caleb's own voice saying his name back to him. The flood stayed lower. The house felt calmer. That should have frightened them more than it did. By the third night, the voices no longer waited to be invited. They spoke as soon as dusk bled into the sky, murmuring requests with gentle insistence. A little more, something warm, something with weight. The water outside rose only to the windowsill and stopped, rocking softly as if lulled. Mara slept for 6 uninterrupted hours for the first time since they'd arrived. On the 4th day, the mailman didn't come. His truck sat at the end of the drive, door open, engine cold. Caleb found one shoe near the barn, half sunk in mud, the laces pulled tight as if something had tugged him forward without haste. That night, they fed the grate without speaking. The house stayed dry until morning. When Mara woke, the kitchen table had shifted just a few inches, but enough to be unmistakable. Damp streaks trailed across the floor, leading from the cellar steps to the back hallway. The monster had come upstairs. And when the voice spoke again, low and satisfied beneath the grate, it didn't sound like anyone they loved. It sounded like it was learning. The 5th night, the food stayed. Mara watched from the edge of the kitchen as the bread struck the darkness beneath the grate and rested there, pale against the shadowed stone. She waited for it to vanish, for the familiar, wrong silence that followed feeding. Nothing happened. The voice didn't come right away either. That frightened her more than the hunger ever had. Outside, the water began to rise early. It crept across the land before the sun fully set, swallowing the fence posts and climbing the porch steps with quiet determination. By the time darkness pressed against the windows, the flood had reached the glass again, higher than it had since the first night. Caleb tried the cellar door twice, then a 3rd time, his knuckles whitening as he pulled it open. Still empty. The basement was unchanged. Dry concrete, bare walls, the faint mineral smell of earth. But when he looked up at the underside of the grate, he saw fresh scratches etched into the metal, thin and close together, like marks left by fingers dragged slowly across brass. The voice returned while they were upstairs, softer than before.
"You forgot,"
it said, sounding almost amused.
"That's all right. You'll remember."
Mara didn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the house shift around her, subtle movements settling into place. The floorboards creaked, not randomly, but in sequence, as if something heavy was testing its weight room by room. Footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs just after midnight. They were wet. Caleb pulled Mara into the bedroom and shut the door, his breath loud in the small space. The handle rattled once, then again, water dripped onto the carpet outside, each drop measured and patient. They stayed awake until dawn, backs pressed together, listening as something moved through the house that knew the layout better than they did. Morning brought silence. The flood was gone, leaving the land sodden and scarred. Inside, every door stood open, except the bedroom door they'd locked. The scratches on the brass grate were deeper now, the metal warped slightly inward. That night, the voice didn't ask. It told them what it wanted. And when Caleb tried to argue, the voice laughed, using his tone, his rhythm, his fear and said something that made Mara's stomach twist cold.
You taught me.
It whispered.
Why would I stop being hungry now?
The water reached the windows before night fully fell. Mara noticed first when the light bent wrong across the walls, wavering like breath across glass. Outside, the fields had vanished beneath a dark, shifting surface that reflected the house back at itself. Fish drifted past the windows in slow, careless arcs, their bodies brushing the glass with soft, hollow taps. The house felt smaller. The voice rose from beneath the floor without invitation, no longer bothering with politeness.
You're running out.
It said.
So am I.
Caleb stood in the kitchen, fists clenched, staring at the grate. The bread still lay where it had fallen the night before, untouched and stale. Hunger had changed the rules again. What do you want? He demanded. The house creaked in answer. Upstairs, something shifted its weight. Enough, the voice said, and this time it sounded like both of them at once. You've always had enough. The footsteps began before they could move. Wet, deliberate, coming down the hallway. The lights flickered, then steadied, casting long, warped shadows across the walls. The monster did not rush. It didn't need to. They ran anyway. The hallway narrowed as they backed away, the water outside pressing closer, the windows black and watching. When they reached the living room, there was nowhere left to go. The stairs groaned behind them. The front door shuddered under the weight of the flood. Something heavy emerged from the dark. Mara felt the pressure first, hands wide and slick, forcing her backward until her spine hit Caleb's chest. They were pinned together, breath to breath, heartbeats out of sync. The smell of stagnant water and iron filled the room. The voice leaned close, warm with satisfaction.
One of you.
It murmured.
That's all it takes.
Caleb's arms tightened around her, instinctive, desperate. Mara felt his hesitation like a crack opening beneath her ribs. For one terrible moment, she understood the offer, not as cruelty, but as survival. The water slapped against the windows, higher now, rising fast. It learns, Mara whispered, the words scraping her throat raw. Every time we feed it. The monster stilled. She lifted her head, meeting Caleb's eyes. They were hollow with exhaustion, fear, and something worse. Choice. No more, she said. Louder. Firmer. We stop. The pressure increased. The house groaned, beams flexing as if under strain. The monster hissed, anger slipping through its borrowed voices.
You won't last,
it said. Mara pressed her forehead to Caleb's. Neither will you. They didn't run. They didn't bargain. They held each other and let the hunger scream. The night refused to move. Minutes stretched thin and useless, slipping past without progress, without mercy. Mara counted her breaths until the numbers lost meaning. Outside, the water climbed higher, pressing against the windows until the glass bowed inward with a soft, complaining whine. Fish drifted past at eye level, their mouths opening and closing as if tasting the air they could no longer reach. Inside the house, the hunger raged. The monster circled them without touching, its presence announced by sound and smell rather than shape. Wet footsteps dragged across the floorboards. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling, each drop landing too close, too deliberate. The voices returned in fragments. Caleb's laugh, Mara's childhood nickname, her mother's voice cracking with disappointment. They didn't answer. Exhaustion crept in like a poison. Mara's legs trembled, her vision blurring at the edges. When she blinked, the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in time with the house's groans. Caleb sagged against her, his weight heavy and anchoring. "Don't sleep," he murmured, the words barely sound. She nodded, though her eyelids burned. Every instinct begged her to give in, to let the dark take her somewhere quieter, somewhere safe. The monster knew it. Its footsteps slowed, then stopped altogether. Silence pressed down. Then the house shuddered. A deep, angry sound rolled up from beneath the floor, vibrating through the brass grate. The monster screamed, not with voices this time, but with something raw and ancient, a sound of starvation denied. The flood outside surged, slamming hard against the windows, rattling the frames as if the house itself were being tested. Mara clutched Caleb tighter, her nails biting into his arm. They stayed upright through the shaking, through the howling, through the long, punishing hours where the monster raged and weakened all at once. Just before dawn, the sound stopped. The water outside stilled. Light crept into the house slowly, pale and uncertain. When morning finally broke, the flood was gone, leaving the land slick and steaming beneath the sun. They didn't move for a long time. When Mara finally forced herself to look at the grate, her chest tightened. It was dry. No voice rose to meet her gaze. No breath stirred the air beneath the brass. Only silence, thin, fragile, and terrifying in its absence. They stayed in the house for 3 more days. Not because they wanted to, but because leaving felt wrong, like abandoning something that might follow. The land dried slowly, mud cracking open beneath the sun. Birds returned, insects buzzed. The world behaved as if nothing had happened. Inside, the farmhouse felt emptied out. The silence wasn't peaceful. It hovered, stretched thin over the rooms like skin pulled too tight. They boarded the brass grate together. Caleb hammered while Mara held the wood steady, her hands shaking despite herself. The brass vanished beneath planks and nails, sealed away like a bad thought forced down too hard. When they finished, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Hunger had taught them enough. On the 4th morning, they went to the barn. It smelled of hay and damp earth, the wide doors groaning open as if waking from a long sleep. They worked without urgency, clearing debris, stacking ruined boards, trying to make the space useful again. Ordinary. Safe. Mara's shovel struck something hollow. The sound echoed, deep and rounded, unmistakable. She froze, heart climbing into her throat. "Caleb," she said. They pulled the hay back together. A stone well sat beneath it, older than the barn, its rim worn smooth by hands long gone. Moss clung to the stones, thick and dark. There was no cover, no warning, just an open mouth waiting patiently in the ground. Mara knelt, peering into the darkness. At first there was nothing. Then came the sound of breath. Slow, expectant. Her own voice rose from below, perfectly shaped, perfectly wrong.
"Please,"
it said.
"I'm so hungry."
Caleb grabbed her arm and pulled her back hard enough to bruise. They stood together, staring at the well as the voice repeated itself, softer now, kinder. Understanding settled over them like ash. The grandfather hadn't killed it. He had managed it. They covered the well before sunset, working fast, hands slick with sweat and fear. When they finished, the barn felt heavier, as if it resented being denied. That night, the house remained dry. The silence returned, and somewhere beneath the land, patient, ancient, and learning, hunger waited.